I like doing these videos with music. The last one I just did before this was with a track by a group called Archive, which is relevant in so many ways. And it reminds me of one of the most amazing women I've ever met in my life. She told me one day, "Don't ever tell me you love me." And I knew. It was operational, Well, at least I thought. I didn't know what side she was on. It's none of my business. But I knew what my objectives were. And I'd fallen in love with her. So I had to find the right time to tell her those words, "I love you," because she told me explicitly, "Don't ever tell me you love me." And now, I guess, retrospectively, it's because she loved me too. Maybe. I don't know. Operational security is a fucking horrible thing. I can't begin to imagine the absolute atrocities that people that have been through. I see. I don't mean any disrespect, but YouTubers and people that have ended up on the YouTube thing. Sean Ryan. He's a particular person that there's this other guy. He's got dreadlocks. He used to be like a sniper. He's done a few really deep interviews, amongst other frontline men. I never considered myself to be a frontline man, ever. I haven't been to, the trenches. But I've been to places where no one wants to go. And there's this thing that I've learned about emotional intelligence and general intelligence that I still struggle with a lot, because I can understand how my emotional intelligence has completely undermined my whole fucking plateau. It's just fucking horrible. But by the same token, it just, emotions weren't a consideration as objectives that needed to be achieved, and it didn't matter. But I didn't ever contemplate the depth of where it comes to emotional intelligence, and you've been working in a way that you've just been cutting off and shutting off that aspect. in order to make sure that you can follow through with what you need to do. And then you return back to this place where you need to be real, you need to be human, and those emotions reattach. And the reflections upon where you've been, what you've experienced, the heartbreak, allowing, this is specific to me, allowing myself to get into relationships and things like where I wholeheartedly, without doubt, was absolutely in love, but knowing that I would need to move to the next jurisdiction or the next objective, and closing off my feelings to that, because the only consolation amongst the work that I was trying to ensure was successful, the only hope I had was the love that I felt in those moments, those special moments of being close with someone real and honestly. And now I'm here. All those relationships from the past, broken hearts, a jar of broken hearts. There's a song, there's a film, I don't know, I can't remember. Just remember the title, Jar of Broken Hearts. My auntie, bless her, she used to say I'd be a heartbreaker. And I never considered myself to be attractive or any way, shape or form, and whether it be physically, emotionally or otherwise. I had low self-esteem and I didn't understand what she meant. Yet, irrespective of conceited bullshit, like, me thinking I am this or that, I don't. I just simply have returned home, having left a piece of my heart in a lot of places. Because in the cover that I needed to make sure that I could achieve what I wanted to achieve, it wasn't the game. I had real relationships that I knew I had to leave. And it was fucked up. It was fucked up. To know that my dates of birth, like addresses, are amongst some of the most horrific global catastrophes. I mean that specifically to the Ukraine situation. I left the UK in 2019, and it's not long after my mum passed away, and as a knee-jerk reaction, I already had a visa in progress of it was being processed. I needed to go back. And then my mum passed away. And I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go before she'd even passed away. Because I knew what it was all about. The reasons why that I needed to go back was not anything anyone would want to have to face or deal with or check up upon, which is the actual issue of contention. And then my mum passed away, and I just wanted to fucking go. I just wanted to leave. I just wanted to get the fuck out of here. And then this concatenation of fuck ups. That's not the right words for it. In the moment, unbeknownst to me, maybe it was all prank. Maybe I was, people hear about all these conspiracy theories. Maybe I was fucking programmed for this and programmed for that. But I sit here today with absolute wholehearted, justification for every single one of my maneuvers, because it was my plan. If anyone tried to tell me that I was mind warped and controlled and no chance. But I didn't want the collateral damage by any means. Didn't expect to find myself strategizing some of the most horrific things to have occurred since the Second World War. And to say these things makes me sound deranged. One of the reasons why I've ended up being put in fucking mental institution through referring to multinational, multi-billion-dollar enterprises. That's all we can evidence it all. And by me saying that, what's going to happen? It's going to be deleted. At least I've got the benefit of there are people that know the truth, and they've seen the evidence, and they've seen the truth of the fact, excuse me, that the evidence exists, and they've read or been literally witness to things that have happened. This is going on fucking too long. Just looking up at the time here, it's like almost 14 minutes of this stuff. And to be quite honest, I just want to listen to music. If I turned around and said I want to listen to Kurt Cobain because of the memories it brings back, conversations I had with Jack Dorsey, I can't talk about that. People think I'm fucking nuts. How could you have been involved in the fucking foundation of Twitter? No one knows the motivation for Twitter. No one knows the fact that both Jack Dorsey and I were co-opted. Maybe he doesn't know. psyops were definitely involved. Where I fit into that, I don't know. But you know what? I'm not gonna fucking sit back. I'll put my life on the line. The only reason why I went to Eastern Europe was to try and bring down human trafficking gangs and put barriers between those scumbags and the people that were trying to force women into prostitution. That was the only reason why I really wanted to go there. And I went. And it took me further. I went to Russia and back and a number of jurisdictions. And I've worked for not just the local, I've worked for foreign governments as well. Not through agreement, through spiritual guidelines. Man of God. And that's not to say that I'm godly. I just simply took an oath to serve. And I stood by that oath. No one knows. No one knows how far back it goes. I can say this though. My very first intrigue and wish to fully, wholeheartedly educate myself in psychology was at the age of 14. A very good friend of mine at that time, although we fell apart like every relationship that I've had, he knows. I stood up in a psychology lesson and I made a statement, stood on a chair, how disgusted I was at the alcoholic that was stood in front of us teaching. But at that age, I didn't understand that he had a problem. I dealt with that in the wrong way. I held deep regret in the way in which I dealt with that. But I was 14 years old. I was 2 years after losing my brother to alcoholism. I wasn't taking that shit. And I haven't taken any shit ever fucking since. And I've dealt every single one of my problems from a psychological perspective. So if you ever met me in the past and had a difficulty with me, evaluate what were you involved with me about, because I can tell you now, if push came to shove, you wouldn't want to be stood face to face with me in equal standing, because you know you're in the wrong. It doesn't stop the fucking tears from rolling from the people I've lost. And you know what? Irrespective of the difficulties and all of the motivation that I've had, which could be contrived as hatred, it's motivation to do the right thing. That's why Bitcoin exists. And I just simply love you all. And I wish that I didn't have this horrible lack of care of whether I'll wake up tomorrow or not. Yet, paradoxically, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have been able to achieve what I've achieved to date. And no one really knows the full extent of that unless I've covered it in this. But I don't think I have, because no one knows the full truth. It's too much for me to handle. But I tell you now, I am not going to be fucking killing myself.